Hello everyone, welcome to IREDCon Talk Show presented by Clickaway Creators. Today we have two very special guests with us. They both are managing partners at Bosyard Beauty and Personal Care Consultancy. First, let me introduce Noran El Bosseli. She is a business professional specialized in the health and beauty sector. For over 13 years, she has worked on a variety of health and beauty categories to launch brands, grow brands, and enter new markets. Her journey was associated with some of the industry's product and electronic gurus such as L'Oreal, Dabur India, Philips, as well as new market entrants such as Emami International. Noran has worked extensively in the health and beauty sector in her home country, Egypt, as well as other markets in the EMEA region, such as UAE, Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Algeria, Morocco, Turkey, and France. With her, we also have Sarah Al-Sayed. She has over 12 years of experience in the consumer product sector and has worked across a wide variety of categories with a keen focus on personal care and health. Her passion lies in growing brands and helping them to enter new markets successfully. Her portfolio is packed with some of the industry's iconic household names such as Clorox, Dettol, Harpic, Nurofen, E45, as well as newcomers to market like Glad International. Where she led the business planning and launch in Asian markets, Sarah has worked extensively in the Egyptian market and has expanded since 2012 into the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, Brazil, China, and parts of Africa. Thank you so much for joining us, Noran and Sarah. We're pleased to have you both with us today.
The pleasure is ours, actually. We are very happy to find organizations such as yourself throwing light on leaders in the Middle East and African region.
So I would really like to know about your personal and professional journey, what it has been like, and how did you both end up being retail entrepreneurs?
Well, thank you so much for this introduction. Let me start by saying mine has been very, very rich, and I consider myself being a very lucky person, and the career ventures that I've been through one after the other. So my journey started off with one of the biggest personal care companies at the moment in Egypt and the Middle East, which is Dabur International,
Right.
an Indian origin company that has shown really spectacular growth and a lot of understanding to the new markets that has entered, and their business strategy has been really is cool to learn from. My next journey in L'Oreal was another one that was really, really eye-opening and that I appreciate, consider of really high value, as in the industry is one of the industry's biggest companies. The way they handle the international markets, the way they set food with their own persona in every single market, the business processes behind it, the brand value and the brand equity. That was very, very enriching experience for me. I moved on next to Emami, which is again another Asian origin company that's at an earlier stage in the market. So I consider this a rather entrepreneurship spirit venture. And this was a completely different approach where I needed to take the market in a different approach, understand how businesses in their earlier stages work, make things happen in a different time. So an established company that's been there in the market for the past 30, 40, 50 years plus is different from a company that's trying to, step foot and grow at this time. So the dynamics are different, the requirements are different, and so forth. And now I'm also very lucky to partner up with Sarah, one of the most brilliant people I've met in my entire career. And we partner up to open Bosyard to help cosmetic companies at their earlier stages develop and, have the knowledge that we have.
First of all, for the very flattering comments and for your amazing introduction. So I had quite a different experience from Noran, where I think, yes, I started in the local market, but then globalization hit me. I was able to experience the category in multiple markets. And I've gotten to see how consumers react, in Europe versus Latin America versus China. And I was able to work with two very amazing companies on this, whether it's Clorox or Reckitt. They both have completely different models. So one where Clorox really focuses on the consumer and bringing something to the market that is very consumer centric, and Reckitt with its, very entrepreneurship spirit, where the turnover of a cycle of a product is literally 6 months from inception to launch. And working on both companies and also seeing the wide variety and array of consumers has made my experience quite rich. So there's a lot of borrowed ideas from different markets that you can bring in locally or outsource. And it also helped me understand what needs to happen in terms of getting, let's say, for example, a global company into a local market and vice versa, a local company into a global market, which is even more difficult for companies that originate in the Middle East or in the developing markets to really crack the European markets or the American markets. And honestly, like throughout the journey, I only realized that I'm very, very passionate about startups and small businesses, and evidently small teams, they have a lot of big dreams. And this is when I met Noran, and she had exactly the same passion. She's also quite, the experienced person in the region. And I've been away so many years. So she kind of possesses the local expertise, the knowledge, and I come in with a bit of, globalization at hand. This is where we became such a, I would say, like when I work with her, I feel like we're kind of a power company with both kind of arms and experiences, and we pitch in different elements.
So we have a very beautiful eclectic mix here, and it's great. And in fact, Sarah, you know that you were just talking about globalization and small markets. Piggybacking off of the same topic, how do you think COVID-19 has impacted your business, and how do you feel that you've evolved during the current challenges?
Well, this year we've seen a lot of change. Not only in the way we do business, but also in the mindsets. I think it is the first time for me to realize how much entrepreneurs are becoming very interested in digitalization. I mean, digitalization has been around, right? But even in corporate companies, and I think Noran would relate, we used to sit there and talk about 2020 plans when we would, go into the digital era and, go into e-commerce, and we would grab ourselves and go forward, become, new aged marketeers. But I really think this hasn't become a dream anymore. It's becoming a reality, and it's becoming a reality across the board, whether it's for big companies, small companies, and small businesses even more so. So really, we're really seeing an explosion of e-commerce and what the wide array of what e-commerce can do to a business. The other thing is, my gosh, like the volume coming from small businesses. I think before you used to see the bigger companies more keen on consultancy. Now I think small businesses are the ones who are really looking for, that expertise and that knowledge, because they can't afford otherwise in a time like this, where you really have to optimize your spending, you have to optimize your strategy. Getting it wrong is not really an option. And therefore they're turning a lot more to us as consultants to really help them out. The other thing that we all cannot really shy away from is process innovation. I mean, us here having an interview over Zoom would be something like a myth a couple of months ago, right? People working remotely is also a myth. And with that comes a lot of process innovation. So we're seeing a lot of talks about virtual reality and how it would impact businesses, and how could they, take their store environment from, the brick and mortar example to the digital world, how to create brand experiences, optimization, like we said, in the consumer journey and the budgets. So all of these things we're seeing and a lot more. But I think these are kind of the highlights.
Of course. I mean, this has made everybody realize that the number one priority is sustainability and innovation. Even though we did have the technology of doing video calls, but doing this from the comfort of our home, this was like really unheard a couple of months back. So process innovation is, of course, a key highlight. So Noran, tell us, what do you feel that the future of retail beauty industry would look like?
We have definitely seen huge changes in different markets. There are general changes that are happening everywhere. Let me just put a title to that. So let's say that the COVID-19 situation has accelerated existing trends. Okay, and let me throw light in specific on three of these trends. So let's start by saying, so Sarah was just saying digitalization. And so digitalization was optional, was, we're always talking about the future of the business is there and so forth. It's not the future, it's the now. And you cannot really afford otherwise, because your brick and mortar regular kind of traditional experience is not working anymore. It's not working in times like these. I'm not saying that it will not exist, because a category like beauty cosmetics is very sensitive to consumers interacting with the product, opening the product, smelling, feeling, it has that kind of sensitivity. However, I need to create and be as a digital as a business, have the flexibility to digitalize myself. So that is number one. Number two is that we have seen in the past decade how engagement in retail has become something very, very important, and consumers are becoming more conscious and aware about them. But let's just say that after a lockdown and after the new normal and all of these circumstances we are witnessing in the world, that the consumer will become a lot more mindful to the experience. Yes. So when you go back to meeting your friends, for instance, on a very personal and basic level, you appreciate that experience a lot more than when it was just business as usual. So when you go back to the store, you will be a lot more mindful to the experience, and therefore we need to make it worthwhile for consumers. And there's a lot of applications in digital reality. There's a lot of applications also in giving the consumer at home their professional experience. So today, a lot of brands are adapting themselves to, for instance, if we talk about the saloon or the professional business, that you give the consumer at home a very similar experience. A lot of professionals in hair care, for instance, are giving online consultations, telling the consumer how to apply the product, the step-by-step, offering them, a lot more proximity than it used to be. And let me discuss about the last trend that I'd like to throw lights on. Even as Bosyard, we'd like to discuss consumer consciousness. So we've been all, in the trend of consumer consciousness, clean beauty, clean packaging and raw material and so forth. But I guess everyone has firsthand witnessed what it's like when nature, puts us back on us, So it's not, again, optional anymore. This is something that we need to all, take into our practices, in our products, and make sure that the consumer at each and every level feels that there's been a change and life is not going back to what it used to be.
Absolutely. I mean, this just instills more confidence for the consumers when they are buying from such a brand who were able to pivot and adapt so quickly, because consumers can also understand the situation when they see brands also taking that into account. I think it instills a lot of loyalty and confidence. That's a great thought right there, Noran. And I would like to ask that you've been working in the Middle East for almost the past 15 years now. Many people consider this as one cluster. What do you tell the international business who are looking to expand in this region?
Let me start by saying that region has a lot of similarities and a lot of differences. So let's say a basic highlight would be the language. So the entire region speaks one language. It has one mainstream religion. It has a lot of cultural, mainstreams. However, it's not a region that you want to approach as a full cluster, because there are a lot of differences between it. So if you look at the Gulf, for instance, the Gulf countries is completely different. The consumer culture, the consumer preferences is very, very different from when you approach a large company like Egypt, where we're speaking to you from. It's very different from the West Mediterranean region, where Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, they have a lot of similarities between them. So I would first advise any international company coming overseas to the Middle East region is first to make sure they have a local team, because also the cultural sensitivity to this part of the world is quite impactful on the business practice. The consumer mindset is very, very different. After conducting a lot of consumer research between neighboring countries even, you can see the consumer reacting to one advertisement, for instance, with complete different ends of positive and negative reactions, just because they did not feel this was for that Arab consumer and not the other.
They should not be treating this as a cluster. Rather, they should be looking at this as an individual region that they want in, or the individual place. And of course, having a local team would greatly benefit them. My next question is that amid this pandemic, many small and medium businesses are more worried than others that they would lose the business. What are your thoughts about this?
I completely understand that as a small business, you'd be more worried, like that you are fragile, that your financial body would not take all of the, the changes happening. But let me also highlight that as a small company, you enjoy a lot more agility and flexibility than a big organization trying to make one change and rolling out across its different, offices, regions, practices, and so forth. So I would actually give maybe some tips on that front to people who own small businesses in that time. And number one is that you really mobilize your agility. So understand and know and have confidence that you, among others, are the most likely to adapt to change, to launch a new product, to roll that change along your entire business, your business different elements. And so the second thing I would suggest that you would think collaborations. So this is not a time when we are thinking competition and where you want to go ahead, rather than how you want to be unique and how you can join forces with similar businesses. So we've seen a lot of businesses in our market, for instance, put hand to hand, join their forces to optimize their back-end process and their back-end operations to offer the consumer a higher value and to just elevate the entire consumer offering. So that is really the time to consider collaboration with like-minded business owners. And I would also, again and again, reinforce digitalization. You are not too small to go digital. On the contrary, you are quite the right business model to go digital, and you are also a lot more digital native than others. And finally, I'd also really urge them to look at their processes and see how they can think outside the box more than ever, to source locally anything they can, to find solutions, and to think how they can innovate the process to eliminate costs and increase the value.
Of course, and I think that this is where your collaboration point touches it perfectly. Because when businesses collaborate, they're of course able to not only reduce costs, but also increase the value and the efficiency at the same time. And the fact that a small business is able to recognize and pivot really quickly compared to a larger business, it increases their chance of survival. So yeah, I completely agree with that. So my last question is for Sarah. What's in the making at Bosyard, and what can we expect in the near future?
So, I think going back to the point about digitalization and small businesses that Noran just shared on, and their ability to be digital natives, I think one of the things we really, really realized when it comes to the retail business is that they have a lot of research on what is actually happening on ground, right? So we coming from the industry, know how to look at your square foot and divide it and optimize your consumer's journey in store and make them, do this impulse purchase here. Whereas when it comes to digital, we're absolutely clueless about that. So I would say data would be our big thing over the next 2 quarters. So we're currently actually launching kind of a beta solution that is looking into creating a white label for small businesses that would not only enable them to be digital natives, which they are, but also empower them with data behind it. Because the difference between a big company and a small company is that a small company doesn't have a lot of access to data, whereas a big company can collaborate or buy data. And that would make all the difference in sort of making the operations better and the process better, and also your success opportunities. So that sort of white label is looking into DXP, consumer experience or a digital experience, where it kind of consolidates data mining, data aggregation, also kind of creating a seamless dashboard between collating your insights for creating the best content and creating the best personas for your business, to then making sure it covers the distribution part of your business. So like I said, kind of replicating the kind of data we have in store for the digital journey, and finally kind of suggesting ideas for conversion, how to optimize your funnels, as well as innovation. So what could you do for the future of consumers? So this is kind of what we're looking at, and hopefully our beta will launch in Q4 with a couple of brands that we're actually testing at the moment who want to go digital. So yeah, that's it. That's the future of Bosyard.
All the very best with it. We would be looking forward to that great launch. Thank you so much, Noran and Sarah, for sharing such great insights with us. We look forward to having a chat with you again in the future on some other trending topics in the beauty and health retail industry. For our viewers, please like and share if you like this chat with Noran and Sarah. Also subscribe to ClickAway Creators YouTube channel to appreciate what we do, and we have more coming from the industry leaders. This is Prachi for IRITCon.